Hey there, everyone.
Hey there, folks.
This is AV,
This is Rita.
and you're listening to I Don't Know Her, the podcast where we talk about mostly women that you've probably never heard of.
You probably should have. And today,
you will.
yeah.
It's been a while, folks.
It's been a minute. We're rusty.
We're quite rusty. You've probably noticed that I changed my name.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, I'm going by AV, although there's been talk of maybe going by Avery, but they're close enough. So I'm still on my gurney, my gender journey. So, I mean, we've taken a prolonged leave of absence from the show. Thank you to everybody who stuck with us and who have continued to listen and followed us and still continued to recommend our show to folks. Luckily, we have plenty of episodes to get people
for people
through.
to come back to or maybe start over fresh, or they hadn't listened to season 2 or something like that.
Yeah. So I know that on the show before we took our hiatus that I did talk about my mom dying, which, you know, really kind of like fucked me up a little bit. And 7 weeks to the day after my mom died, my dad died. And it's just been really difficult. The whole grieving process has been very hard. And so I've spent a lot of time working on my mental health and allowing myself to grieve. I had to go to Montana. I've had to talk to a lot of lawyers. When both of your parents die in a very short amount of time, right after you've had a major surgery, it makes things really hard.
To put it in the simplest of words, yes.
So I just had to simplify my life. And then just about the time when I was starting to get my shit back together, Rita also had some changes.
Yeah, I'm just going to be, there's no like simple way to put it, but me and my husband are getting a divorce. It's been a very difficult decision to come to, because there's a lot of factors. Obviously, number one is our child.
Mm-hmm.
I care about him very much. Love him, actually. So it's really hard to...
Actually, yes.
yes. Do love him very much. But to come to a decision like that I didn't take it lightly. It's been something I've actually been thinking about for years, kind of in the back of my mind. But recently it's just has come to light that it's just never going to be what I think we need for each other as a married couple. And so having to tell him, having to tell our son, told my parents.
And that just happened last weekend.
I'm telling my folks. They were not very happy about it. In the end, after a very long conversation, my parents said, they are going to support both of us, and that Nick is still very much part of my family, and he's he's invited to holidays. It's not like I get them and I get to run away. Like, they're his family too, which is I'm very grateful for, because I know a lot of people have very, very messy divorces where that is not part of the situation at all. Our son is understanding. He's very hurt.
Yeah.
He's very mad at me right now.
Yep. That seems a very appropriate reaction for a 13-year-old.
Mm-hmm. So I'm giving him his room and the grace to feel how he feels. I'm not trying to pull the rug out from underneath him and say, well, you don't understand. I keep telling him you're allowed to feel how you feel.
Yeah. I can't even imagine, because my parents divorced when I was very young. So I didn't have that same kind of connection to my parents as a unit that you do after you've witnessed your parents for 13 years. Like, there's a different kind of connection to their connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what it's like to have that change, but I can empathize with the fact that a change like that at that particular age,
mm-hmm.
when you're already going through so many changes in your body and in your emotions and in school, your social life,
mm-hmm.
and then to also have your family situation just completely change would just, I think, be incredibly difficult. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's handling it with more grace than I think a lot of kids might.
Yeah. I have a feeling he's going to milk it. I want a dog. And I'll be like, okay.
I know the other day you were like, he wanted something and you were just like, I guess I'll buy. Wait, should I buy that? I guess I'll get this for him.
Yeah, it's better than I thought and worse than I thought at the same time because, my husband doesn't want to split but understands why. And we've had going to therapy, trying to get the necessary tools to work on our relationship and build it and make it stronger, and just nothing ever really took. And I don't think for lack of trying, I just think the pieces don't fit anymore.
Yeah. And, we've had this conversation a couple of times, but I think it's important that the wider audience hears this. A lot of people have this idea that a divorce is a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I just choose to not believe that. I believe that your marriage to Nick was a success for however many years. How many years?
11.
And out of that success came a wonderful child that you share and will always share. And now you're moving into a different chapter of the relationship. It's no longer a marriage, but it will be a partnership in the way that you're raising your son. And so it's not a failure to get divorced. It's a change. And, I think that that's hard for our society to wrap their mind around because we moralize so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We moralize marriage. You're a more moral person if you are married than if you are not, which is so weird. You know what I mean? Like we place this value on the idea of marriage that I think also creates a burden for the couple, so that then they're in a position where they feel like they can't change or move on because people will judge them or people will do this or that. And that's not how I think we should view marriages or the ending of marriages. It was a chapter, it ended.
Yes. I do feel this immense sense of loss. And that's why I think if anybody who's listening follows our social media, Avi and I were talking about our losses. And it wasn't my dream to end up here when I got married. I wanted that longer road. I wanted that growing old together.
Happily ever after.
And yeah, I do feel like people are judging. And I know they're going to judge me. I've told some people, I've told some of my family. I'll be telling the rest of my family this week. And you do feel that judgment. Like, oh no, I'm so sorry. But like behind their closed doors, like what is everybody else thinking? Like I carry that with me. But I am starting to realize at 37, I kind of I don't fucking care anymore. Yeah. What I care about is like, what is going to be good for me? What is going to be good for my son? What is going to be good so that we're all happy, healthy people?
Yeah. I mean, if you're so unhappy that Nick's also not getting the best of you, he's also losing.
Absolutely.
And I think that is important. I don't know if you're okay with sharing it. We can always cut it out if not. But you said that when you were having that conversation with your parents and you said, I'm not happy. And your dad said, it doesn't matter. Like, just keep working through it. You'll get happy later. And I just think, wait a minute. It's just, I don't want to be married to someone who's unhappy.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels shitty to be the other person in that marriage. That somebody's just with you because they feel like they have to. Gross.
That's not what I want.
I don't want that for myself. Like if Abby was like, well, I just don't want to get divorced because I feel like we have to stay married.
You'd be like, what?
I'd be like, no. I would rather someone want to be with me. Not just in a marriage with me, but like they want to be in my presence. Like last night Abby and I were lying in bed watching the baking show because we are
Y'all are the cutest.
75 and we were holding hands. We often hold hands in bed, which is, I don't know why we do that, but we do. And she goes, you know what's funny? After 13 years, you still make me smile just to like hold your hand.
That's lovely.
I was like, that's fucking what people want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not that our relationship has ever or will ever be perfect, but that is happiness. That is contentment. You know, we have a contentment in our relationship that we've had to work at.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, have there been moments when, you know, it felt like it was not worth saving or we couldn't get through it? For sure. But as I said earlier, the goodness and the happiness and the joy that we've had has always outweighed the other parts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made getting through those other parts worth it. It's worth it to work through it because I know what's on the other side. But if you can't see what's on the other side, if it's never really been there,
Mm-hmm.
you have no goal. You have nowhere to go. You can't envision a path that has never been made.
Yeah. My mother asked me, she says, well, then what do you want? And I honestly said, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to find me because I feel like I haven't really found myself yet. And I can't be somebody's wife. Like, I don't even know how to put it. I was very honest with AV. I was like, I felt truly, I don't think I was ever supposed to be a wife.
Mm.
I don't think it's me. Which was a really hard thing to come to terms with because I feel like, you know, I made a choice. I got married. I didn't have to do that. I could have said no. I mean, they ask you to marry them. You don't have to say yes. You can be like, can we just live together? Like, just say that. But I don't know. I just never have felt like I was wife material. I don't know why. It's like even when I moved here to Spokane and all through high school in my early 20s, I was like, never getting married. Never getting married. Don't want to. But I did anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, it's been a wonderful journey with him. He's a wonderful person.
An incredible dude.
Yes.
And a very fantastic father.
Amazing father.
Like one of the best dads I've ever had the privilege of being in their life.
Yeah.
You know, he's a terrific dad. And you've raised a terrific son together.
Oh, yeah. He's an amazing child.
Yeah.
And we had a very intense love. You know, I've never loved anybody like I've loved him. I've never felt loved by anybody like he loves me. So people probably are like, why are you leaving? Like, why are you breaking up? It's just like, I think Avi's right. I think that chapter is done in my life and it's time for the next one. I think it's okay to allow ourselves multiple chapters in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some things carry over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some things just don't.
Am I terrified of making a big giant mistake? Yes. But I've always been a leaper and I've always been willing to try for myself.
You also said when you first decided to finally say it out loud to him, you said that you felt like a huge weight had been taken off your shoulders.
Because I was being honest.
Yeah. And it's like, that's important. You know, you always tell me that I should trust my first feelings.
Yes.
My first instincts. So like when it came to my surgery, I obviously initially wanted a full top surgery. And then I was like, well, maybe I should get this smaller. And then I went with the full top surgery and I am so fucking happy.
Mm-hmm.
I am so glad that I don't have tits at all. So you had told me when I was going to get my surgery that I should trust my instincts. I should trust what my intuition was, what my first thought was.
Mm-hmm.
And you were right. And I think that your reaction after you told him is the confirmation that your initial feeling was correct. So, just go with that and like know that you're living in your truth. And it's your truth. It's not anybody else's truth. And so their opinions of it, their feelings about it are irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me, like, do you think you'll ever get married again? And I said, I don't know. How can you ask me to predict the future? I don't know. Yeah. I know at the moment, like, this is what I felt for this relationship here. I don't know what I'm going to feel with somebody else.
Right. And every relationship is so profoundly different.
Mm-hmm.
As long as, you're not, like, I don't know, dating the same dude over and over again or whatever. Every relationship is different. And so the way that you respond in those relationships changes.
Mm-hmm. I really do think, because one thing that Nick said, and we've had multiple very long conversations about this, and he told me, I don't feel like I know you anymore. And I said, I think you're right. I don't think you do know me anymore. I think we're very different people than when we first got together. I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to become two different people. And I said, if we had truly wanted to make this work, we would have put in the work. We would have been fucking trying every day. And we didn't.
Well, and like Abby and I have been together for almost 13 years. We are not at all like we were when we met. We're not the same people individually or as a couple. We're not even close.
Mm-hmm.
We have changed a lot. And that's understandable. And I hope like the norm
mm-hmm.
that over time you become different people. I think there's a way to change with someone. And then there's the other way, which is you move away from them.
Yeah, I
the
think
changes
that's what happens.
Separate you rather than bring you together.
Mm-hmm. I think definitely the person that I've become and like the path that I've been on was not the person that he thought he was going to be married to.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I don't want him to be unhappy. I want him to find somebody that completes him. And I know he loves me more than anything. And I do too. But I think I really do truly believe that we will be better apart.
I think the day he finds someone who is as devoted to him as he is to that person, he'll be like, oh, light bulb moment. This is what it was supposed to be like. This is what I've been searching for and wishing my marriage had been.
Mm-hmm.
He is a one woman kind of dude. Like, he wants to be in a monogamous, healthy, happy marriage. And he deserves that.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. Is it going to hurt to, because I have a feeling he'll find somebody.
Oh, I think he will.
Oh, he will.
Pretty quick.
And I know she's going to make him really happy. Am I going to be a little jealous that I couldn't be that person for him? Yeah. Is it going to hurt a little bit? A lot of it? Yeah. But at the end of the day, if I get to see him happy, 100% worth it.
Yeah.
It's all I want for him. It's all I want for myself.
Right. You both deserve that. Well, that's what's been going on, everybody.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of loss,
We've
a lot
been
of
on
change. Yeah, just a lot has been going on, and we're happy to be back doing this and bringing more podcasts to your ear holes.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you so much for your support and your continued listenership.
Mm-hmm. And if you're out there contemplating something, go with that first instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your turn.
Oh.
Who do you got?
Oh, gosh. You're going to bear with me because, like I said, I'm rusty. Okay. So do you know who Betty Reid Soskin is?
No, I have absolutely no idea.
She's America's oldest park ranger in the U.S., and she's also so much more.
Wait, I think I do know who she is. I think I've seen like little like New York Times things about her. She's like, is she an older black woman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I've absolutely seen like a little blip about her, but I've not read much. I think she's on my list though.
Oh, no.
So I got to cross that one off.
Well, Betty was born Betty Charbonnet in 1921 in Detroit.
1921?
Mm-hmm.
She's 100.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Oldest park ranger.
Yeah.
Her parents were Dorson Louis Charbonnet and Lottie Breaux Allen. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Breaux. Brew, maybe?
What did you say? Breau?
X.
Yeah, that's gotta be like bro.
Bro. Her mother's name was Lottie. Her family was native to Louisiana, and they were severely Catholic.
Oh, that's a disease?
It is.
You can be severely Catholic.
I know what that's like. Her father came from a Creole background, and her mother was from a Cajun background. Isn't that the same thing, or am I wrong?
I think they're slightly different, but I'm not well versed on what Cajun versus Creole is.
Yes. So I didn't want to
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know, so I'm not going to claim to know. I'll just mention really quick right here that one of the biggest influences for Betty in her family tree was her great-grandmother, Leontine Breaux Allen. Brew? Bro?
We're undecided.
Leontine had been born into slavery in 1846. Betty meets a lot of struggles throughout her life, and she holds her great-grandmother's ordeals in her forefront, that everything that her grandmother went through, everything that she sacrificed, in my opinion, I think is what influences Betty the most throughout her life, which you'll figure out as we go through this, and just keeps Betty highly motivated and just keeps pushing. Her grandmother lived till she was 102.
So they're long livers.
Yes.
As a family.
I want to know what's in that blood.
Yeah, I know. That's impressive.
Although, I don't know, would you want to live to 102?
I would not mind if I were still mobile and had my brains and my wits about me.
Mm-hmm.
If I were if I had dementia or, I was bedridden or something, then no.
No.
That seems like a miserable existence. But
102 is a long time.
Abby's grandmother is 92 or 3 and is still driving and lives on her own.
Really?
And, yeah, I mean, she's hardy.
Nice. My great-grandfather lived till he was 101, and he was totally fine.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. If I was with it. I mean, I think it's also hard to live that long because you outlive everyone else
Mm-hmm.
in your generation and your age. So you have no spouse, no
All your friends are gone.
no siblings. They all die too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be the hardest part, I think, about being that old, is that you're so alone.
Mm-hmm. Betty spent most of her early childhood living in New Orleans until a hurricane and flood destroyed her family's home and business in 1927. I was not able to find out what the business was that the family had. This flood was actually one of the biggest and most devastating floods in U.S. history.
Mm.
It affected 27,000 square miles.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and about 637,000 people became homeless. That's insane.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And this was actually, too, it mostly affected people of color. It was black folks.
I was going to say, this is probably why we don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the Great Chicago Fire or whatever, we don't know about the Great Flood there, because why would we?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why would American history ever acknowledge things that have to do with people of color? Who knows? Or queer folks or anybody who's marginalized.
So Betty's family, they're homeless. They relocate to Oakland, California. One of the many black families who, they were just driven to the West because there was nowhere else to go. She graduated from Castlemont High School in Oakland, and she joined the Air Force in 1942.
Wow.
I don't know how this came about, but Betty learned that her superiors said that they only tolerated her because she passed as white. She was a little bit more on the fairer side.
And so her supervisors tolerated her?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
And so she ended up confronting them, and she was told, oh, we're willing to work with you. And she's like, that's not the point. You're just tolerating me because you thought I was white?
We're willing to work with you, as in we're willing to be in the same room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, God.
She was pissed.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah. So she ends up transferring to a job as a file clerk for the Boilermakers Union A36, which was an all-black union auxiliary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She felt more comfortable there. She didn't feel like she was being tolerated.
Yeah.
She wanted to do more, but due to the segregation rules at the time, she was assigned the main job of filing changes of address cards for workers. So if they like changed their address, they would put it on a desk, put it in a box. She was just changing addresses on cards.
Oh my God, that sounds so tedious and boring. I would hate that.
Yes. And people move frequently. It's the military. So obviously it's probably just stacks and stacks of addresses that she has to change.
Yeah, God, that would be awful.
During her time in the military, Betty was exposed to overt sexism and racism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course. She just got so sick of it that she was forced out of the military. She had to leave. Like, she couldn't do it. And two, like, if you see a picture of her when she was young, she is amazingly beautiful. Like, insane. I saw the photo of her and I was like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. So I can imagine a bunch of dickheads.
Yeah,
probably
totally.
were very, very aggressive with her. Soon after Betty left the military, she married a man named Mel Reid. It was around June of 1945 that she and Mel founded Reid's Records in Berkeley, California. It was a small, one of the first Black-owned record businesses.
It was a record store?
It was a record store.
Oh my God, I love this so much.
And it was, Betty said they specialized in selling race records and gospel music.
Yeah, so black singers.
Black singers.
I told you, my mom opened the very first record store in the state of Montana, right?
Yeah.
So, like, this is in my blood.
Well, you get the photo I saw of you as a baby, and I was like, look at all those fucking records. And you're like, yeah, my mother owned a record store.
Yeah, the first music store. And she also became a concert promoter. And, like...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, Willie Nelson asked her to come on tour with him.
She said no?
Yeah, she said no.
What?
She had a job.
Okay.
My aunt was like, but I'll go.
That would be me. I'd be like, hey, fingers up over here, please. So the couple sold records that obviously, like we said, were black artists other than like the white-owned record shops, which were just selling, their cookie cutter stuff. A lot of times they would sell records to like white folks out the window because they didn't want to go into the store, but they still wanted to sell shit. So they would like pass it through a window so that they could still make the sale.
So was that their choice or was it the white people's choice?
The white people's choice.
Okay.
And two, their business started because they were selling black folks music. It was really discreet at first. They were just selling out of the window, period. When they would have like a new popular release, Betty said, people were lining up in front of the place to buy that record. We sold them by the box. And that's what really launched the shop into like an actual like storefront record store. And their shop was so popular that it became a Bay Area institution, like the place where you get great music. And spoiler alert, I looked it up. The record shop was passed down to her children, and it was fully operational till 2019.
Oh, no. I was like, oh, man, if I go to San Francisco, I'm going to go there. But it's
missed it by 2 years. Or no, 2 years? Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years. Betty actually was a musician herself. She taught herself how to play guitar, and she wrote music as well.
Wow, she is very well-rounded.
Yes. She said, at a point in my life when I was having trouble trying to figure out where I was going, I found that I could sing things that I couldn't say. The couple made a pretty decent living, so they ended up moving to Walnut Creek, California in the 1950s with their children. They had ended up having 4 children. They wanted to give their children like a better shot at better public schools. One of her kids went to like an alternative private elementary school. Of course, they countered even more racism. They moved into an affluent white area. As they were building their home, they were being openly harassed and they even received death threats. Yeah.
I just read Vanishing Half, which is a book by Britt Bennett about these 2 sisters, one of whom is darker skinned and the other one is lighter skinned. Actually, I think they're both lighter skinned, but one of them chooses to pass as white and moves into this like posh neighborhood with her white husband and her white child. And then a black movie star and his wife move in across the street And the whole, like, they go to this neighborhood council and everybody's like, we got to figure out how to get them out of here. And they just embark on this like open harassment campaign against this family. And I was like, I know this is real, but this is so fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, mind your own business.
Insane.
It just...
And so this other woman who's passing as white, she just watches everything happen.
Oh, she helps instigate it.
Oh my gosh.
You have to read the book. It's so good. There's a trans love story.
Oh.
So good.
Well, pass it on down. Her family's presence there they were one of the first families that helped integrate the East Bay suburbs, but there was a price for that. With all the emotional stress and fear for like herself, her husband, her children, she ended up having an emotional breakdown.
Mm.
And one thing she ended up doing to help carry herself through this mental breakdown was writing music. So she said she started writing songs before she even knew it. She wrote about activism, motherhood, the complexity of being a Black woman.
Mm.
She said that she could sing the things she couldn't say. If she just said them, it wouldn't make any sense, which I think is great.
Good philosophy also.
She wrote, sang, and even performed openly for about 10 years. I couldn't find any recordings of her, but from what people who had witnessed her music, they said that her singing and her writing was comparable to like Nina Simone.
OMG.
Yes.
Right? And we're not talking about her as a recording artist. We're talking about her as a park ranger.
Yes. This is before she's even a park ranger. Now it's just a record store owner.
This is a wild ride.
I'm going to jump in, like, little spoiler alert. A musical ended up being made about Betty and her music. And the musical is called Sign My Name to Freedom. I didn't find any recordings of her performance, but I found a video of a jazz vocalist named Jamie Zimmer who's singing one of Betty's songs. And Betty worked with Jamie and came to each one of their rehearsals to help them guide Jamie's performance. So I'm going to play the song for you.
Monday morning, streets are bare. Seems as how they don't want me nowhere. Since I went to the courthouse and signed my name to freedom. Daughters say, mustn't run. Sound the trumpets, the kingdom's come. Ain't no turning back now. I done signed my name to freedom. Fields of fire, garden flaming neath the summer sky. Shrouds of white, no name naming. They don't know this dream can't die. Churches burn, deacon dead. Still I know it's like daughter said. Ain't no turning back now. I done signed my name to freedom. My Lord was down at the courthouse. Day I signed my name.
You know what I thought was interesting about that is that so the video itself is a promo for the musical that was created, and so the actress/singer is sitting alone with an acoustic guitar that as you can hear, did not play. And then the background is a whole bunch of like cards attached to a string, and then a big photo of Betty looking like straight out of like the Vietnam protests.
Yes.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, she becomes, well, we'll get there. So as the years go by, Betty is still full-time mom, business owner. The area around their record store is not that great. It's pretty run down. Her and her husband decide to petition to their local officials to help clean the area up. Betty worked with the officials to get the block where her record store was completely rehabilitated and cleaned up. She worked so well with them that it led her. They actually asked her to serve as a staff member for the Berkeley City Council, councilship, because she was so progressive and good at organizing and getting people together and fucking making stuff happen. And they were like, "Hey, do you want a job?
Do you want a job working for the city council?" Why can't that happen to me? Hey, you know what? You're really good at research. I want to make you a researcher full time. Would love that.
Okay. So that position led to her being a field representative for 2 members of the California State Assembly. So during the 60s and 70s, Betty was extremely active in the Bay Area civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. She highly protested the Vietnam War. So you were saying with that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she looks directly that's a Vietnam War protest right there.
Oh, yeah.
That is a sit-in.
Yes, literally photos of her sitting down, playing her music. Towards the end of the 70s, she ended up divorcing her husband and remarrying a psychology professor at UC Berkeley. So imagining with all the marches and protests and stuff, maybe she met somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe somebody more in tune with her
beliefs.
vibes.
And yeah. From what I could gather, it seemed like her first marriage was a little intense. I don't think he was very nice to her. She just kind of described him as kind of a severe person. And I looked at some of their family photos and nobody's smiling.
Ooh.
The children look very sad.
Miserable.
Yeah. It just seemed, I don't know. I could be wrong, but it just seemed like that to me. Her career in politics and activism would end up spanning for almost 30 years.
Right on.
She, jumping ahead a little bit, while working as a field representative for the California Assemblyman, Betty attended a meeting with planners from the National Park Services. They were organizing and developing a park that was going to be called the Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historic Park.
Could they put any more adjectives in that fucking name? Good Lord.
Pretty sure you could find one more.
Yeah, we'll just dig out another one. South. South Rosie the Riveter.
South side, Rosie the Riveter, World War II, Homefront, National Historic Park. That's a tongue twister.
Right?
Say that 5 times fast. So it was being created to honor Americans, and especially American women who were on the home front, who worked in the various industries across the country, to help the war effort.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, everybody knows the iconic Rosie the Riveter image, and they know of what women did during the war.
I always find it so interesting that we romanticize Rosie the Riveter, but then immediately took those jobs away from women.
Oh, yeah. It was tap, tap on the head. Thanks for doing that.
That's so cute.
Go back.
So cute.
Go back to where you
I'm
came
going
from.
to take you out of this job now. So cute you thought you could be a warehouse worker.
Oh, yeah. So Betty actually was pretty pissed off about the conceptualization of the park at first because it was only representing
white women.
Yes.
Ooh, who called that one? Could see that coming a mile away.
So she was like, don't like it. She was like, I literally do not see myself in this. And I was there. So she
in the Air Force and working for the Union.
Yes.
Doing things that were very much needed during the war effort.
Yeah. And at that meeting too, she was the only Black person in the room.
Shocking.
So she was like, she said this, the history as I have lived it was nowhere in sight. Not 1 minute of it. She voiced her opinion at the meeting and she challenged the planners to create equal representation for everybody that had served.
Good for her.
She's become known for saying, when she spoke up, she says, what gets remembered is determined by who is in the room doing the remembering.
That's correct.
100%.
Yeah, it's the people who are at the table, they're the ones who get heard and seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks that she was the only one, but I'm glad she was there to say, excuse me, you are not remembering history fully.
Mm-hmm. I guess there was like a giant dock explosion when she was in the military, and it had mostly killed Black people because it was the dock workers, and it was hardly covered in the history books, and like so many people were affected, and same thing with the flood, but it was just wasn't shared.
That's the kind of stuff I really love about things like the 1619 Project, you know, like where we're taking a different look at the way history has been represented. And it's very frightening to be a teacher or a librarian right now because people do not want white kids to hear about this.
Which is like, it's terrifying.
I don't fully understand. I mean, I get it, like in the way that, like, intellectually I understand that you want to protect. I don't know. I don't really. That's what I mean. Like, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, it's like the same way that's like when people would be like, I don't want. This is not the same thing. It's not on the same level, but it just reminds me of when people would be like, oh, I don't want my kid to read Harry Potter because we're Christian. If you think a fictional fucking book could undo however many years of like conditioning of your children to believe a thing, then either one, something's real fucked up about your belief system, or two, you have not given your child nor your family structure enough fucking credit.
Yeah.
Like, if you think that a kid learning about the truth behind slavery will undo his ability to find like pride in himself or have self-worth,
then you're not doing your job.
You're not doing your job as a fucking parent. Because if that's all it takes to make your child crumble to be told the truth, I don't have any words for you.
Then I don't expect them to be able to live a very
fulfilled
life.
I just don't get it.
Right. So speaking up at the meeting, they were like, okay, you want a job as a consultant? Like, if you want to head this up, let's go for it. So in 2003, she helped, as I said, she was hired as a consultant. She helped the completion of the park. She actually then was offered to be hired as a park ranger to be there on site to be able to take people through and properly go through the right channels and be like, this is an actual history.
Yeah, like it's like the educators.
Yeah. And like just have that hands-on, she was in charge. So in 2007, at the age of 85, she was hired as a park ranger.
I just want to rewind for a second. When you were talking about like this Rosie the Riveter 75 adjectives later park, I thought it was like being constructed in the 70s. You're saying that this is like in the early aughts. They're like not that I am shocked, but continuously frustrated.
Yes.
By the idea that even in that fucking year, 2002 or whenever they were discussing this plan, they still had yet to include more than one Black person.
Yes.
On the fucking
and that
planning.
She even had to raise her hand and draw attention to the fact of what they were ignoring. It's a museum.
Continuously, and without fail, disappointed.
Yeah.
In all of our systems. And
she too, as a park ranger, she shares mainly, obviously, because it's her own personal story, Black women in the military during World War II. So I'm going to share another video about Betty talking about being a park ranger.
I worked on the home front here in the Bay Area as a file clerk in a segregated Black union because that period would have predated the racial integration of the labor movement by at least 10 years. At the time that I was working, it was separate from the Rosies, from the work that was being done by women who were not women of color. That history has been pretty much forgotten. And one of the things that I get to do now is that I, along with the rest of staff, get to layer back in the complexity of those years, the complexity of the stories, to pull back in the various histories that exist the Japanese history, the Latino history, the feminist history. We get to do that here.
I think one thing you can see or hear from that clip is how compelling she is,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously well thought out in what she wants to do
Mm-hmm.
and represent and share and teach.
Yes, it shocks me that she wasn't always like an educator. She just sounds like a professor, or you know what I mean, like a writer or somebody who's been versed in like academic language or sociological language for so long, because she's really like well versed in what she's talking about, not just as like a lay person, but as somebody who like really understands and is talking about it in a way that is intellectual and approachable.
And she does talk about, in the multiple clips that I've watched, about her trying to channel her great-grandmother and how important that history is, and that she's part of that history, and all the other people of color that she was with. She seems to take like a sense of deep responsibility, which I think is wonderful.
I really loved her message about, being able to wear this uniform means when people see me, especially young people, can see themselves in a career path that potentially they never thought of.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a profound thing.
She looks amazing in her uniform, by the way.
Yeah.
She looks
Also,
fucking like strong.
Yeah, she gives off some seriously queer vibes though. So I'm really into it. She's probably not. I'm not saying that she is. I'm just saying queer vibes.
The vibes.
I get to have queer vibes.
So she loves sharing her story with as many people as possible. She said, too, it's reclaiming her history for herself. Because I bet, when you're living through your struggles, especially like her in her early years in the military, you don't know that you're living your history quite yet. I don't think it sinks in. And especially if it's got like negative connotation to it of her being harassed, her being sexually harassed and things like that. It's like, and kind of like people take that from you. So I like that she says that she's reclaiming it for herself.
Yeah, it's a really profound thing you just said about like you're living your history and you don't necessarily know it when you're in it. Yeah. I mean, you kind of do, but you don't. You don't really know. Like, I remember, protesting for gay marriage in Montana in like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we didn't get the right to marry for 10 more years.
Mm-hmm.
So I was living that history.
Yeah.
In the moment.
The marches that we've done together.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to think about, like, we're already living history every day that we're alive.
Maybe we should make every day matter.
Yeah, doing the things that count and being part of the movement and the change.
Yeah.
And progress.
Be on the right side of history.
Yes, please.
So on September 22nd, 2021, she turned 100 years old, making her the oldest active ranger in the National Park Service. For all of her service and activism, Betty has received numerous honors and awards. In 1995, she was named California's Woman of the Year by the California legislature. She was invited to attend the inauguration of President Obama.
Very cool.
Yeah. She received a Silver Service Medal from the National World War II Museum and has 2 honorary doctorates from the California College of Arts and Mills College. So this is a quote from Betty. She says, "I know I'm in my final days. I am so aware that if I don't get it right this time, I can't ever have time to do it again. Everything in my life has to be truthful and meaningful because I don't have any time for foolishness. We do not know who is powerful in the moment, so make a difference now."
Oh, it's basically what we were just saying.
Yes. I like that. I have no time for foolishness.
Yeah.
She's a very, like, it seems like no muss, no fuss.
Yeah.
Stand up and say
what you mean.
Be that voice, even if it's scary. I mean, I imagine her strength partially probably comes from going through that mental breakdown and going through that anguish and coming out stronger on the other side.
When she talked about the mental breakdown, what was she pointing to as like the central factors?
A lot of it is the racism towards her children.
Oh.
Yes.
Like, I expected this to be different for my children.
Yeah. And I would imagine if you're receiving death threats, she was probably very afraid for her family.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was many other instances that she probably didn't share. There was one that she talked about where her kid's school wanted to hold a minstrel show for like a school activity. Like, you know, when people come and they watch plays and stuff.
Yeah.
That was
like
what they
a
wanted.
community activity was
Yes.
a minstrel show.
Yep.
What fucking year was that?
That was in the
60s, probably?
Mid 50s, early 60s.
Oh, yeah, because she was born in 21. So her kids are probably born in like the 40s. So it would have been the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
Holy
And
shit, though. That would be so fucking...
She spoke up and told the school, like the teachers and the principal, like, you can't do this. Like, this is not something that you guys can do. And so they held it anyway. So Betty said she went and she sat in the front row and she said she cried the whole time. But she says, I made them do this in front. Like, I had them do it in front of me so that they could see that they wouldn't be able to scare me away. But she still sat there and cried the whole time.
I just think she just put herself through torture. I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know what else she should have done, but like, God.
It would have been awful.
I was, you know, what's interesting about that you brought that up. I was just, had a yearbook class in, and we have the archives in our library of all of the yearbooks from even before it was the school we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, they go back to like 44. That's a long time to have yearbooks for. And so the yearbook class was coming in to really like take a look at what are some flourishes you can put in your yearbook to make your yearbook meaningful, and like how do you maintain a theme across a whole book. And so we went and pulled all these out, and I just chose them at random. I just wanted to get a little bit from the 50s, a little bit from the 60s, a little bit from the 70s, a little bit from the 80s, a little bit from the 90s and the early aughts. So they were just scattered around. And this kid was like going through one of the yearbooks and was like, oh my God. And I'm like, what happened? And I come over and they were like, this was a Spirit Day? And I was like, what? And it was the pictures of Spirit Week and like the days of the week, you know, it's like, oh, dress as a cowboy or whatever, you know. One day was Slave Day.
No.
My jaw just fucking fell to the ground. And then in a different yearbook, we were like flipping through the yearbook and this kid goes, did they not know Hitler was bad? And I come running over and the page is like the German club and they called it Hitler's Youth.
The fuck?
Again, these were things that were done well after people fucking knew better.
That it was not okay.
Not that they shouldn't have already fucking known it was bad, but like, oh my God, you guys knew and you did it anyway.
What did they wear for Slave Day? Did they blackface?
I have no idea. I didn't even look at the page, to be honest.
Okay.
I heard it and I went, that's not for me. I'm not going to look at that. I mean, I think it's important also to keep that kind of history, you know, like, my son went to G-Prep and there was a whole kerfuffle his senior year where they had discovered some old photo or some old yearbook where people were doing blackface.
Mm.
And so the response from the administration was to get rid of the photos. And like, that's not the way to go, because the history existed whether or not you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to happen is an acknowledgement of it being wrong and like some kind of recompense. You need to do some reparations. Like you need to do something about it. You can't just like,
skirt it.
You can't just be like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. We'll just rip this page out of the yearbook. That doesn't undo the damage that it caused at that time or that it led to later.
That's the type of censorship you don't want either.
No.
Because it makes everything look cleaner than it is.
Yeah, it makes everything look, so happy and fine when it clearly wasn't. And and that's what her job is. That's basically what she said was like, you cannot have this Rosie the Riveter fucking shit without acknowledging all of the other people who participated and built this fucking country.
You can't tell just one side of the story. Got to tell all the stories.
Well, and it's not even one side. It is... that would be the implication of that would be that like as if no one else existed.
Mm-hmm.
It's absurd, and I don't understand why we have to like fight so hard to have full truth told in 2021, nearly 2022.
That'd be a good question to explore. Why is it we have to fight so hard for truth?
For the real truth to be told, the full truth.
Well, I really did enjoy talking about Betty. A lot of my information came from a Washington Post article by Sydney Page from the Inspired Life section. And then this really cool, the San Francisco Chronicle has a section called Lift Every Voice. And this was an article by Brittany Bracey, and it's called Betty Reid Soskin Shares Forgotten Histories as a National Park Ranger. This Lift Every Voice section of the Chronicle is about connecting young Black journalists with Black history makers.
Oh, that is very cool.
Yes, and then they get to get them together and do interviews, and then it's Black voices, which I think is a wonderful project. I want to kind of dive more into that when I got my own time. The video it took from, I thought was Black Enterprises, but it was
the San Francisco Chronicle.
Yes. Alrighty, and that is my story.
Well, thank you for sharing Betty's story with
She's
us.
still alive, too.
I know. She's still doing her thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's still a fucking park ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking badass.
Love it.
I do too.
Well, thank you so much, folks, if you're listening to us, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thank you for returning. Thank you for continuing to support us, especially you Patreon folks. We've got something in the works to try to thank you for everything you've done and all the support you've given us and continue to give us. And if you're interested in being a Patreon subscriber, please go find us on Patreon.
There you go. We'd also like to thank our editor. This one's going to be a doozy for Lucas McIntyre. Yeah. We had a lot of kinks to iron out.
Yeah. We're getting back on a bike, but it's a rusty one.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Lucas. Also, thank you to Jennifer Finch for our lovely theme music.
All right. We're back at it. Until next time, folks.
Goodbye. This fucking pillow again. Ah!